Hey guys, it's Paul Salazar. I'm here with Kyle Amicucci and our special guest, Kevin Wathey. Did I get that right?
You did.
All right, sounds good.
Second time.
Yeah. We're very excited to have you on, Kevin. You're doing a really cool project that we're really inspired by. Not only inspired by the project, but inspired by the story of the birth of the project. So that's why we have you in. We've known you for a little over a year through our mutual friend Bobby. You're a West Side guy. I feel like you're kind of one of us. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Man, where do you want me to start? We can.
I was gonna say how far back.
Yeah. You're like,
well, I was born
May 1st, and
Well, doing research on you and obviously your website, obviously an athlete, and then leading that into, I guess, your first line of work. We can start kind of the transition into professional aspect of how we don't have to go over the details of the project yet, but how that came to be from the line of work that you were in prior.
So I can backtrack a little bit. Like growing up, I always thought I was going to be a pro athlete. That's since I was a child, I thought I was going to play pro hockey, and that was the path that I set out to do. Yeah. After high school, I went and played 2 years of junior on the East Coast, which is kind of like semi-pro hockey. Tried to walk on to a D1 school, that didn't happen. Tried to go pro, that didn't happen. Cut my losses, moved to LA for the first time to be an actor. And
well, I was going to say, even before we get to that part, your identity must have been wrapped up in being a pro hockey player
100%.
For so long. And then after that dance ends, it's like, now what? You know, and not knowing what to do, that must have been like just a mental shift, even coming out of that, to be like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
You know, how was that for you? What did that feel like?
The reason for wanting to move into acting was twofold. One, it was something that I had done when I was a child, and so it was somewhat familiar and familial to me. The second part was after, and we can talk about this, after my mom passed, I wasn't able to express or emote personally. And so being able to act was me being able to cathartically express, not as myself, but as someone else. And that felt safe to me. And so acting was a form of escapism, not a dive into a character. And when I was living in LA the first time, my dad called me, very old-fashioned New Yorker, conservative, and he was like, "You just like, the hell are you doing? Yeah. Get a degree, or I never help you with anything in life." Was kind of the ultimatum that he gave me. And
did he give you like a set amount of time for that to figure it all out? Or?
He was like, "You're starting school this next semester." I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be challenging." Yeah. I said, "All right, I'll go to school for theater." And I moved back to Arizona and went to ASU, did my undergrad in theatrical performance with a concentration in acting, minored in psychology because I wanted to use psychology to learn how to go deeper into character. Psychology became the foundation of everything that I do today, both on the real estate side, which we'll get into, as well as on the consulting piece for resorts and hospitality brands.
Oh, nice. So it seems like the psychology aspect behind it and the acting was all trying to go deeper into yourself without realizing it at that time.
Correct. In hindsight's 2020, 100%. I didn't know who I was for a long time because I felt like I had lost that portion of me. And so it was this look inward to create myself outwardly, if that makes sense.
Of course.
And that took me down a really interesting path. And I say I've lived many lives because whatever I do 100%. And so I'm the second I decide I'm going to do it, I'm all in. And
you want to be an actor. You want to be the actor, the best you can be, or anything that you're working towards.
Yeah. Do the verb, don't be the noun.
No. Explain that one to me. I was reading that. I wanted to a little bit understand your perception of that.
So there's a lot of people who talk about doing something. They say they are this thing without actually being the thing. And so if you do the verb, you're actively participating in the act of doing the thing that you say you do. You're not publicizing that you are that thing. And I feel like it's the inverse, especially with social media. It's so much of, I'm going to label myself this way, all right, cool. Show me what your calendar looks like. Are you actually congruent with what you say you do? And congruency of my word is something that, like, my word to myself is and must be impeccable. Nothing else matters outside of that.
So it's almost like the work first instead of the branding on the outside. You got to do the work to almost earn the branding, if that even makes sense. Like you want to work on yourself, and then you can put out what you're doing for the people.
Correct.
To understand. Interesting.
Actions speak louder than words. Yeah. But yeah, we saw that on your YouTube intro, and we thought that was a cool little ending to your video there.
Yeah. I like to try and hide things throughout, and like find little intentional nuggets in places, and splice them throughout what I do.
Nice, man. Well, from the acting, then what happened after that? When you graduated, did you go back into or try to professionally act, or what happened there?
So I guess we got to kind of color this with how I got to that point. When I was 16, my mom wanted to inspire me. I've shared this with you guys, but for anyone listening, so they can have some color.
Of course.
She decided to run the Tempe Town Lake Triathlon. Ran the race, ran the race, crossed the finish line, complained of low back pain, thought she hurt herself in the race, got an MRI, days later was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 3 months to live. She sat my sister and I down, said she was going to spend one more Christmas with us, and outlived the prognosis by a year. Passed away the day after Christmas, 2010. And so the reason I share that is because that was the piece that led me, that happened. A couple things happened, and then 4 months later I went to play junior hockey. So there was no grieving process. It was, you have no emotion. Yeah. And that was the facade that I put on moving throughout life, was you don't need to express, just get shit done, essentially. And acting gave me a way through that. I went to school for acting. My second year at school, I got invited to go perform in Asia. And I went and toured a fair piece of Asia, and primarily in Indonesia. And when I was in Bali, I discovered Eastern philosophy, yoga, mindfulness, meditation. And this was over a decade ago. And I remember I came out of a yoga class. The sky was a different shade of blue. The trees were greener. I could smell differently. I made eye contact with my vocal production coach, and I saw my mom and her, and I broke.
Wow.
5 years after she passed, I was incomprehensible the rest of the day. I couldn't breathe, speak, anything. And I was very well received by the community there. And I came back to the States, and I said, where do I meet more people like this? Obviously yoga, because that's what I was doing while I was there. Mm-hmm. And it was this kind of synchronistic path into something that was meant for me. And so right before I graduated my undergrad at ASU, I also enrolled in a 200-hour yoga teacher training to go deeper into myself. That was a whole intention for me to do it. Because of my sports background, I already knew the anatomy and physiology piece. I didn't know the Eastern philosophical piece. And because of that, they had classes on the schedule that were specifically, one was called Buddha Belly Be Strong. And it was this ab conditioning core workout yoga class. I would take
the name of that class, just take the name of the class. What marketing that is.
And so I ended up teaching full-time at the studio while I was also a student, while I was also a student at ASU, while I was also working full-time. And so I had the busiest final semester of school I ever had. And then when I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to keep slaving away like this. What do I do? Mm. And that led me to accepting an internship at Hyatt Hotels, straight out of college.
I didn't realize that's how it got started out.
Mm-hmm. I had a friend who he was a pool boy, pool server.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, yeah, we need some interns for the summer. You want to come sling drinks with me over at a pool in Scottsdale? And I was like, say less.
Great way in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those 5 years, I would say, is that grieving your mom at any time, or are you using other outlets to, I guess, work on yourself? Is it subconsciously or consciously that you just need something to focus on, but you don't really know where to turn? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Prior,
even after the yoga, you were going into it. I mean, I guess that's where it evolved from. Your self-work is there.
There's two elements to it. The prior to that experience in Bali, it was all escapism. It was all staying busy. It was all doing things to just out of sight, out of mind. After that experience, things got worse before they got better. Because once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And once I saw that, I felt this pain inside of me that I had never allowed myself to express, that was pent up. And that's when I turned to partying and drinking and going out 5 days a week. And I didn't go out the other 2 days because I was so hungover that I couldn't. And then the cycle continued. And I realized it took me a long time to realize like what I was doing to myself. It was like, man, I'm living the life. I'm in Old Town Scottsdale. I'm working at a 5-star hotel. I'm going out every single night. Life's great. I'm making good money. Life's great. And it wasn't until, honestly, the beginning of the pandemic that I like woke up in a way and shifted.
What was that shift like? Why was it the pandemic that made you think that there's like another life besides that?
I don't remember the specific reason why, but there was something inside me that says you need to get into better shape again, something along those lines. And so I did 75 hard, the challenge, and I still have the video to it. And I recorded this video, and it was everyone's doing the 75 hard challenge. Too easy. We're gonna do 90 hard, and part of that was no alcohol for 90 days, and that was the longest I'd ever gone without drinking. At that end of the 90-day mark, I was so clear and so dialed, and so like the world opened up in a new way that I hadn't seen before. And I went 18 months without drinking, and my entire life shifted because of that.
Yeah.
Probably more clear on that vision and being able to access that a little bit more.
I gave myself permission to allow myself to be as great as I knew I could.
Yeah. Not many people do that. No, and it's amazing what can come out of that. So I'm excited for you to share what you're working on now. But when you were in that time in the pandemic, you were still with Hyatt at the time, or what were you doing professionally?
No, so I was with Hyatt until 2017, end of 2016, early 2017. So I started with them, pool server, turned into like running a food and beverage department, and then turned into brand development. Last property I helped open for them was on Scottsdale, in the heart of Old Town. So I got there before they broke ground, and I got to see the entire development process from ground to everything built, which was really cool for me. I was also 23, 24 at the time. They're like, who the hell is this young kid kind of coming in? And I've never been, even despite all this, I've never been afraid to share my ideas or stand up for the things that I think should go a certain way. Yeah. And it's interesting to come from, the property I came from before that was the Hyatt Regency Scottsdale, which is one of the oldest Hyatt properties in that region. I think one of the oldest in the States, or one of the oldest, period. And so I came from this property that it was a well-oiled machine. It worked like clockwork. And I love efficiency and I love organization. And then you go to a new property where they're pulling people from all over the place and they say, this should go here. No, that doesn't make sense. Put this here. But no one else came from a property that worked on that level of efficiency. And so it caused a lot of challenge internally. And so I took it upon myself to try and rework a lot of these systems and processes, and that people have been at Hyatt for 20, 30 years. I'm butting heads with. They're like, who the hell is this young kid that's telling me how to do my job? Could have probably handled it in a better way, but
hindsight is 20/20. I guess
Exactly.
we'll learn for the next one.
So when what happened though is when I transitioned to that property, why I said this, I don't know. I said, I'll build your food and beverage program for you, but I also want to build a yoga and fitness amenity for guests and run it as my own studio. They said yes. Why?
How old are you at the time doing this?
23, 24.
23. They're like,
Well, let me hold on. Let me ask you, because you said that you have this gift of just being able to say what you believe with authority, and you're saying, they're listening to this young 23-year-old kid that was running food and beverages at a hotel. Where do you get that from? Like, what is that? Because even at 42, I still have trouble having that assertiveness. And I think it's amazing that you have this gift, but where does that come from? Your mom? Your dad?
I think it goes back to what I said about being impeccable with your word. And I think, so after my mom passed, I quit the hockey team. I didn't show up to school. I fucked off for like 3 months. And one day I had gone back to school this day, I don't know why, and I was in 4th period math class. And my phone rings. And I'm like, okay, I'll answer the call. I step out of class, I get this phone call. It's Shane Doan, the captain of the Phoenix Coyotes at the time, one of my favorite hockey players.
Did you have a prior relationship with him? Just
what? That's cool, yeah.
That's
Just
sweet.
some cool hockey player calling you?
And he goes, I heard from my family friend Jude, who was the sportscaster for Fox 10 in Arizona. He goes, I heard from Jude what happened. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to behave, or how to think. But I am here to lay out some facts for you. And he said, when you started playing for the team, I was playing high school hockey at Horizon High School. He goes, when you started and signed up for the team, you made a commitment to 20 other guys on the team that you'd finish a season with them. If you quit now, you're never going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror the same way ever again. Do what you want after the season's over, but know that if you don't have your word, you don't have anything.
Wow.
Have a
Wow.
great day. Hung up the phone.
Oh, no shit.
That was a powerful call right
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
Changed your life.
Everything.
Insane. Yeah.
Even throughout all of like partying and drinking and all that, if I said I would do something, I did it. Always. And so I think, to answer your question, doing what you say you will consistently over time builds a level of internal confidence that no matter what happens, you have the resourcefulness and the resilience to be able to follow through and figure it out when it gets challenging. Because the challenge is guaranteed. It's what you do on the other side of it that matters.
I love that. I know we always talk about, don't talk about it, be about it. you know?
That's on our board right now, actually. Don't
Same.
But
Yeah.
but a lot of times, we do say things and we don't follow through. And I think that's a powerful message. And I think it also is a reason why you are successful in your life in general. Not just your work, but you can tell you're physically fit. I'm not sure if you're still drinking or not, but you look super healthy.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Sorry, I interrupted you there, but I was just really curious about that because it seems that there was a gift that you had there from somewhere. But it's amazing that this guy called you and he changed your life.
Yeah. We don't have a close relationship, but I've skated with him a couple times, and it's interesting now. The hockey world is starting to re-enter my life with this new life kind of that I'm heading down right now, and it's cool to see these worlds collide in a way.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you just had. So let's go back to the story. You just had started doing your own yoga studio at the hotel, and you had no investment in it. You just said, "Hey, let me run this studio," and they just said, "Okay."
I said, "This is what I wanted to do." I said, "You're going to pay me to run this for you as an amenity for your guests, and then I'm going to run it as my own studio, and what I charge locals to come to this is going to be me." They're like, "Okay, good luck." Like, I don't think they believed that I would be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so I set up a partnership with Lululemon. I hired teachers. I ran this studio at a 5-star resort in the heart of Scottsdale. A year into it, they asked me for 50%. And I said
50% of the studio outside of their private membership or their guests.
50% of revenue of what I was bringing in. And I said, that's not how this works. I have a better idea. And I put together a proposal of how we could branch this model to Hyatt worldwide and how we could have an internal-facing employee wellness program and an external-facing local, whatever region or space the property is in, program. And funny enough, the CEO, CFO, VP of the Americas was going to be in town the next week, and they were coming to property. And I just so happened to have a meeting with them because I wore these fancy green shoes that I had custom made when I got the job. Funny story. So Andaz is, in my opinion, the coolest brand that Hyatt has in their portfolio. Andaz, rather than taking a box and placing it down into a location, they've go survey the location and then build the box around the location. So Andaz was based off of a artist community that was adjacent called Cattle Track. Cattle Track was every type of artist imaginable living in almost a commune. And so they built all the glassware, they built all the plates, they built like everything there, all the art was theirs. They held art classes week. It was like really, really cool. And I said, if everything here is customized, I gotta like customize my own uniform. And so I had custom made neon green chucks made.
Why the neon green?
I love neon green.
All right, cool.
And on the back it said Andaz. So like on the heel,
yeah.
on the back it said Andaz. And it was the talk of the entire property. And so when they showed up, they said, "Oh, you got to meet Kevin. He's the one with the green shoes, and he's the one who runs the yoga program." And so I sit down with the CEO of Hyatt.
Wow, that's amazing. It's huge.
Mark Opelmazian in the flesh. And I sit down with him, Pete Sears, and Mark Ellen. And I go, "Guys, I have a great idea." And I basically pitched them on the idea of wellness as a driving revenue source for Hyatt. It's a great idea, Kevin, but we don't see wellness being big enough to warrant a corporate partnership. But good luck. And I said, "Here's my 2 weeks."
In that same meeting. Yeah.
That takes so much courage.
Yeah.
Is this all from the same call, or does this courage come from somewhere else? Like this is
I don't
really
know.
cool, man.
This was probably me. Like, fuck you. You don't like my idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
But that's
I have a vision. You're not seeing my vision.
But that's amazing that you have that conviction, and I think that also helps with sales and whatever you do. And life's all about sales. You're always trying to sell yourself or your product, or your service, or something, right? And you're an entrepreneur. But that's amazing that you have that courage to talk to somebody of that stature and say, "Okay, I'm out of here."
So it wasn't said to him directly, but it was said. I went to my manager and said, "Hey guys, this is it for me." I see the world hierarchically. I see the world as horizontally, and so you could have achieved incredible things, but who you are today is no different than who I am today. But it matters what you do tomorrow about that, and so every decision is constantly shaping who you become. And so if I place importance on what you've done, it devalues where you're going. And I think the future is far more important than the past. And because if I didn't, like, there's so many things I've done in my past that I wish I would have done differently that I can't, but I'm grateful for them because I wouldn't be who I am had I not done those things. And that's the cost of capital of living kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom there to unpack, but those are beautiful words. Yeah, I think a lot of people can learn a lot from just that little moment right there you had. That's really cool.
Also, if you went back to working with them, you probably wouldn't feel like you were as authentic to yourself.
I wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have been. And if I had, I would have sacrificed what I truly want for what I could have had right then. And that is not how I want to live.
No. 100%. So 2 weeks, and then what's the game plan after that?
This is where it gets good.
Selling green chucks on the side, being like Andaz in the back. I could take that logo off. Go from there.
So this is where it gets good, because when I left, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had nothing lined up. No idea. So I said, okay, I have an email list from people that have taken class on property. I know I like yoga. Why don't we cherry pick people from this list and run a retreat? That sounds like a good idea. I'm in Scottsdale. Let's do Sedona. Awesome. So I send an email out to this list saying that 6 weeks from today, I'm running a retreat in Sedona, Arizona. I have 12 spots. 24 hours, it's sold out.
No shit. What a great transition to that, too. That thought process to be able to be like, I already have a target market here. Let's just go after them.
These are all people who have already taken a class from all over the country. And I said, how do I get all these people back into the same place? And so I think that's an innate gift of mine is being able to look at all these different fractured and fragmented pieces and find a way to unify them together in a way that solves a problem. And that's like, we happy to get into the health side of things later, but that's really what we're doing with Baseline. So I say I'm running this retreat. I have no idea where. I have no idea what the agenda is going to be. I have no idea what the programming is. I have no idea any of this.
You sold it out without having anything planned. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
I said
just a landing page.
I sent an email. I said nice. I sent an email and I had $12,000 in my bank account like a couple of weeks later, and I go, it's going to be in Sedona. Here are the dates. I didn't have the house until the Monday before the Friday it started.
Nice.
The weekend before, I'm like, I got to find something. And I literally go on a Google search and I find this house called Moondance Sedona that sleeps 12 people and has a yoga room in the house.
Oh, wow.
And I call up the woman and I go, are you available this coming weekend? And she goes, actually, we just had a cancellation. And I go, here's the deposit. See you Friday. No idea the programming, no idea anything. We had, it was an incredible weekend. Again, a testament to, like, if you are on, like, jump in the river and let the stream take you. If you're on the right paths, things fall.
The green lights come out. You can just drive through.
Yeah. And there are two things that came from that weekend. But the first being is we broke even. I didn't make any money. If anything, I think I lost money. And I went back and I said, let's rework the numbers here. How do we make this make sense? Because the other piece I'll share is like what had come from that. And so I said, how do we make this make sense from an economic perspective? Ran the exact same retreat, I think like 3 or 4 months later, and made $10,000 in a weekend. I was like, maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
How do we go bigger? And then the next retreat I ran was in Costa Rica. First time I went, foreshadowing what's coming.
I like that.
Excuse me.
After that first retreat, before I ran the second one in Sedona, I got a letter from one of the participants. And I didn't know any of this going into the retreat. And she wrote me a letter basically saying that the retreat was her last attempt at living. That she had struggled with an eating disorder her entire life. And that she didn't know what to do. And that she had taken one of my classes at a gym that I was teaching at and thought, I don't know, there's something here. Maybe I should go experience this. And she said, being able to eat around a table communally with 12 other people and see their relationship with food altered her perspective on her relationship with food and her body. No longer suicidal. Ended up getting the job of her dreams, and now travels the world doing what she does. And I got that letter. That's an ancillary benefit of something that I had no clue of what was going to come about. And I said, there's something here, and being able to create space or hold space or create a container or do something where other people can go to come home to themselves. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Now what I'm doing is worth more than face value.
Yeah, changing lives.
And that's when this whole...
That gives you a big, strong why, too.
The whole retreat perspective shifted. And so then I started to go international, started running these retreats. Pre-pandemic, we were doing between 6 and 8 a year. And so I was like, we were in Peru and then Bali and then Costa Rica and then traveling 6 months a year. And
so cool.
It was great.
And this all started from just opening up a studio at the hotel. You left and you started doing the small retreats. How did you get a growing from there? Is it just word of mouth?
Yes. And while I was doing that, 64%, I think, repeat retreat each retreat.
Yeah.
So every time I ran one, 64% of the people that came were same people, but then they would refer, and then it would continue to grow, and then we were waitlisted. I was also teaching classes at the time at a local gym, so I had I was in front of probably close to 1,000 people a week. So like there were people coming from that, and they knew me from that. After I stopped teaching classes weekly, it was much more challenging to book retreats out because I didn't have this constant lead flow, so to speak. And then the pandemic overnight shut down everything. I was, right before the pandemic, I had just run a retreat in Bali. I came back to Arizona, and we had a contract in hand to open an 11,000 square foot yoga and fitness center in the heart of Scottsdale. Take over an old furniture store and turn it into yoga on the right, group fitness on the left, CrossFit in the back, second floor coffee and co-work.
Oh, no kidding.
And I had the contract in hand. There was one revision that needed to be made. I sent it in for revision, had the contract in hand Monday, and the world shut down. That's a huge bullet to dodge.
Yeah, seriously.
We were supposed to open in June of 2020.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow.
That's I mean, the timing that you're having is really something.
And so again, fractured pieces. I say, what do I do now? We got to figure something out. I said, I understand the world of wellness. I understand the world of hospitality. There's a lot of people who now don't have a company or don't have a business because they don't know what to do because travel shut down, and their entire livelihood depended on going to a physical location. And I said, okay, let me figure something out. People are going to want to travel again. Great. Why don't I put together an online course of how people can run retreats and make 6 figures a year doing so? Put together, it's called the Retreat Leader's Handbook. Published it online. I sold 1 in 90 days. Turns out people don't want to learn how to travel when you can't travel the world. I had probably over 100 DMs saying, how are you marketing this thing? What did you build it on? What back-end systems and processes are you using? Oh, that's what we need to solve. So I created the mindful marketing method for wellness entrepreneurs to go from IRL to URL.
That's where it is.
And that, did I have any experience in direct response marketing? None. Could anyone at that time make money on Facebook? 100%. But again, it goes back to that. There's a question that goes through my head daily. And I think that is the reason why all of these things fall into place, is I say, if there was a way, what would it be? And it's never been, oh shit,
Can't do
something
anything.
happened. Like, I'm not the victim. And it's come at a detriment recently because there's been a couple things that have happened, and I never viewed myself as a victim, except maybe like when my mom had first passed. And I say at a detriment because there's a couple things that have happened recently where I viewed myself as needing to pick up the pieces for other people rather than going on the offense because of that thought process.
Interesting.
And it's been counterintuitive. And when I shifted that, I go, oh wait, and I worked through a couple things very quickly when I went on the offense rather than staying kind of on defense or picking up the pieces. So there's something to be said for it, but that's been a consistent question, so to speak, that's gone through my head. And so I ran this for 2.5, 3 years. Travel started to pick back up. I ran a couple of retreats again. I said, I need to be around people. This is where I thrive. I'm not enjoying teaching anymore. I don't want to be the person who runs the retreat. Why don't I start consulting and helping not only wellness entrepreneurs run their own retreats, but helping resorts build out their wellness footprint. And so I did that for almost 2.5 years, where I would travel around, help resorts build out their wellness footprint and build out basically a retreat revenue stream, which means they're productizing their stays rather than saying, here's an average nightly rate or average daily rate. You're saying, here's our week package, and we're selling this to retreat leaders, and the leaders fill the resort. And it shifts the complete, it shifts everything from an economic perspective when you think of it from a hospitality perspective. because now you're operating at 80, 90, 100% occupancy, and you're selling to one person, not 100 people. And as I continued to do that, I had this inkling in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm building for other people. I'm building other people's brand. I'm building other people's dream. Why? If I know how to do every single piece of this, why don't I do it for myself? And I was leading a retreat in Costa Rica. This was last summer, June 2024. And I ended up going on a date with this girl. No sparks. No, it was like the one morning I had free from the retreat group too. And everyone on the retreat group's like, don't take her surfing, dude. She's going to get fucked up. And I was like, I want to go surfing. I'm going surfing. Ugh. She got destroyed. She sat on the beach by herself for like an hour.
Sounds like a great first date.
While I was surfing, and then I felt bad, and then I came in, and we like sat and chatted for an hour.
Yeah.
And great girl. We like still friends to this day. And she goes, I'm down here looking for investment property. She was 30, quit her corporate banking job on her 30th birthday to move to Costa Rica. And she goes, I'm touring property tomorrow if you'd like to come. And I was like, wait a second. Like, we just met.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Second day, let's go look at some houses.
Yeah. So what are we buying together? I was like, yeah. I was like, cool. I'm down to go see something. Let's check it out. What we toured was not it. And I was like, thank you. I don't know. One day.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but at that time, did you have any inkling? I know you were thinking mentally like, okay, I'm building other people's dreams. But at the time, were you like, oh, this is now what I'm thinking for myself? No, not even yet. Okay.
Nope. The subconsciously, sure.
Yeah, but that needed to come out.
Consciously, no. Maybe subconsciously in talks, I was like, oh, I want to own a boutique hotel. Like, maybe that
could be an option. We'll see.
Maybe that came up.
Yeah.
I don't specifically remember if I said something like that, but she's like, I was like, yeah, I would be totally down to invest in something down here. I love Costa Rica, as I think the extent of the conversation. And then she goes, why don't I introduce you to my realtor? Super connected. He lives in New York. Cool. I flew back to LA. I was living in Hermosa Beach. Got on the call with this guy. And he goes, yeah, there's actually some stuff here and here and here and here. We got this boutique hotel on the coast that's for sale. And I was like, boutique hotel on the coast for sale? Well, tell me about that. And it was just like something sparked my interest on that. And so as I had built out this kind of protocol for resorts, I have a one sheet of like, this is, if you want to run a profitable retreat at this place, you need this, and this. And it checked every single box for exactly what I would do if I was to go to a place to say, hey, I want to make 30 to 50 grand in a week and bring 20 people here. Cool. Didn't think much of it. And a couple of days later, I ended up speaking with the owner, and he goes, oh, yeah, this is what we do. Here's what we do. We run it as a hotel. We haven't really thought about retreats before, but like it seems to be popular. The neighboring properties are on 18-month wait lists. Like, cool. He's like, why don't you like help us run the retreats, and we'll give you a portion. I was like, that doesn't sound great, but like, cool. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna like never thought anything of it. And 2 days later, I get a phone call connecting me again with the owner of this hotel. Like, okay, didn't I just talk to you on Monday? Like, this is strange. Cool. Well, hey, have a great day. Didn't think much of it. The girl I went on a date with on Friday FaceTimes me and is with the owner and says, you should meet Kevin. And I'm like, that's 3 times in a week. What?
Yeah. All differently.
And none of them were connected. Like they're not friends.
All different backgrounds, all coming
correct
to this one guy and you meeting 3 times in 1 week.
Correct. And I go, hey, I don't know what's up. I'm gonna fly down. Let me come walk the property, and see what I think of it. And I put together like a 4-page audit of all the shit he was doing wrong.
Nice to meet you.
And at this point, there was no thought about actually buying it. You were just getting curious.
Yeah.
I was starting to entertain the idea of what would it look like to buy it?
Yeah.
And or what would it look like for him to sell it to me on some type of term? And because like his son didn't want it, his daughter doesn't want it, and like this slow transition. And I have this sheet of like, here's what you got to do, all these pieces. And I remember leaving, and I'm like, there's something else here. I don't know what it is. I don't know where I would get the money to buy this. Let me make a call. And to kind of fill in the context there, just after the pandemic, I became a Tony Robbins Platinum Partner. So that's like his private mastermind, 500 people in it. You get to go to Palm Beach and work with Tony in his studio monthly for the entire year.
Oh, that's cool.
Super cool. And during the pandemic, he built out this studio that is insane.
With all the TVs?
All the TVs. So he's got these massive these massive screens, and there's, I think, 1,500 Zoom screens on the front, 1,500 Zoom screens on the back. And then the front one lifts up 10 feet, so he can play to camera, and then there's an audience of 1,000 people behind camera. So it's real life and virtual all at once. So he can have 50,000 people on virtual and then 1,000 people in the audience. And then he can physically go like do stuff with you in the audience while there's also people on. Immaculate.
Same, yeah.
Wow.
And so I went there every single month. And this is a good story too. So I had gone to a couple of the events, and like there's a lot I like in his world, and there's a lot that like take what you like, leave the rest kind of thing. There's a lot of good that I got, and one of the pieces that I took from that really expanded my view of the world is that the level of thinking that I have is limited to my own perception of what I've had in the past or what I think is possible. There's an element of your only limitation is your imagination. Is probably the best way to put it. And there were some people in the room who I started to talk to and get close to who were like the guy to my right. I went to this one finance mastery event. The guy to my right's doing 500 million a year. The guy to my left's doing 50, and I'm doing like sub $1 million. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
This is kind of like, all right.
Well, it's like your first time entering this pond that you didn't even believe that it's possible.
First time entering. First time like being surrounded with people of that caliber in a condensed setting. And you kind of walk into that room, I'm like, do I belong here? Like, who?
Right? Who am I?
Yeah. How am I here? I fucking financed this thing on a credit card to get in the room. Like, and so I, before leading up to this finance mastery event, I got really interested in this concept called infinite banking, which is like using high value cash life insurance to act as your own bank, and you borrow against yourself. And so you're always like, you're loaning from the own bank and then repaying yourself rather than going to some other financial institution. I got super interested in this. I read 7 books in 1 week, and that's not a fallacy. Like, I literally just sat outside. I was living in Arizona. I sat outside, sit in the hot tub, and would like listen to an audiobook on 2x speed, and like, that's interesting. Let's listen to another. And I go to this event, and I start teaching people. This is another thing about me. If I learn something, I have to share it. Like, I feel this, like, you got to know this.
Yeah.
And I started teaching this concept to these people that haven't a clue any of this. And I like, how do you not know this? This is like, if I had millions, this is exactly how I would do it, kind of thing. And I end up telling this guy about it. And he goes, have you met Andre? And I go, Andre? Who's Andre? He goes, that guy over there. He owns an insurance company. You should go talk to him, see what he thinks. And so I walk up at intermission and I go, hey, Andre, my name's Kevin. I think we're supposed to meet. He's like, okay. Who are you? I go, yeah, I've been like fascinated by this infinite banking concept. I heard that you're the guy. And we chat for a couple minutes. The show, so to speak, starts back up. Go back to my seat. Next intermission, I walk back up to him. He grills me. What about this and this? How do you do this and this? Pass with flying colors. because I actually had read all those books and
Yeah.
I understood what was going on.
Yeah.
And he goes, interesting. Where do you live? And I go, Scottsdale. He goes, me, I live in Scottsdale. I go, where in Scottsdale? He goes, the Air Park. I go, I live in the Air Park.
Oh, no kidding.
I go, where in the Air Park? And he's like, here. And my apartment at the time, I could see his office from my balcony.
Jeez.
No kidding. And
And-
where was this? This was in Florida?
This was in Palm Beach.
Palm Beach,
In Tony Robbins' studio in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And he goes, we're flying back on Monday. You should come back with us. And I go, oh, cool. What flight are you on? And he goes,
Safe flight.
the one that leaves when I get there.
Yeah.
And I go,
My
oh.
plane will leave when I go.
And so I'm like, sorry, American, I have a better travel plan.
Oh, wow.
And so I end up flying back with him, and we get there. And he goes, sorry, my plane's in the shop right now. This is Robert Kiyosaki's jet. And I'm like,
No way.
Rich dad, poor dad.
what
Yeah.
the hell is going on right now?
Right.
And so I get on the flight. We talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the whole flight, just super brief. And then we land in Arizona, go our separate ways. And every week, or not every week, like every month, he would touch base, or I'd touch base or something, and we'd like grab dinner and chat. But every single time that we chatted, he would always ask me like somewhat personal questions about his company. And it always baffled, like, why are you filling me in on the insights of like what's going on? He had a private aviation company, an insurance company, a land banking company, a real estate company. I'm like, why are you asking? Like, I don't get this. And after probably close to a year of those questions, and then also trying to get me to come sell for him, I was like, why do we get dinner? You always ask me questions about your company. He goes, because you never respond with an answer. You always respond with a question, and it makes me think differently. I go, oh, interesting. Because I didn't know what the hell he was talking about
Yeah, you're
half
curious.
the time. So I was curious in what it was that he was bringing up and what it was that he was doing. And I said, I'm not going to work for you, but I really want to get into wellness again at some point. And this was like, this is before that Costa Rica trip for timeline's sake. And I go, I really want to get into wellness again. Maybe one day, like own a property, maybe one day develop something. Like, I think that if I own the property and we did retreats the way they're supposed to be done, thing would crush. And he goes, cool, find the place, I'll finance it. And I was like, interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
2 years later, 18 months later,
Costa Rica.
I have this Costa Rica experience. I fly back to the States and I call him and I said, hey, I found the place. And he goes, okay, cool. Let's jump on a call. And so I introduced him to the owner. We started to negotiate back and forth. We set up initial terms. The terms always seem to shift more and more in my favor as things progressed
yeah.
down that path. Like I didn't know what the hell I was negotiating at the beginning of this.
I was going to say, how, when you're looking at this property and this is your first big development deal, and how are you analyzing, or who are you leaning on to analyze that, and how is this conversation going? How are you feeling about it?
Gut.
Yeah. Is it based on projections and what you think you can do with the spot, or how is this number making sense to you in your head?
In terms of
The purchase price or the deal structure in general.
So the way I initially thought of it was less of how do I make the purchase price make sense, and more of what is the profit per week that I could run if I did this properly. And so I showed those projections, and they're like, you're going to return my money in 2.5 years based on running this not as a hotel but as a resort and a retreat center? It's like, yeah, and I've been doing that for the past 8 years, and I can show you proof, kind of thing. And he's like, okay, this makes perfect sense. And right before we were going to close on the resort, owner calls us and goes, hey, I have the right to these additional 2 parcels of land. One has two condominium units, but 4 are permitted, and another one that has 42 entitled lots that can be residences. You guys want them? Yeah. Okay. The purchase price didn't go up significantly, but the overall scope of the project
Went up big time.
big time.
So your initial look at the property was just to do the resort wellness center and retreat.
Let me take over an existing hotel, turn it into a retreat center rather than a hotel. That was it.
So it was more of like a flip versus a whole development.
100%. It was a fix and flip from resort Costa Rica Resort
and
Edition.
Now you're starting ground up.
Yeah, and so those other pieces got thrown in. We looped them all into a single PSA, and I said, okay, this is like a year ago now, and I was like, all right, well now I'm a developer.
Yeah, man.
Overnight. I learned something new.
Let me wear this hat now.
Right.
And so we started to think of it differently, and that's when my partner at the time, his health started to deteriorate and some stuff in his family started to happen. And so rather than saying, hey, I need you to help me, I said, I'm going to figure this out on my own.
The investor.
Yeah. And like all that I've shared with you guys previous is basically self-taught of me getting curious on like, how do I do this from a development perspective, or who can I leverage in my network that's done this before?
Yeah.
And because I've been so curious, I've been able to build, in a way, a phenomenal network of people who are like versed in every asset of business and of life. And that's also something I pride myself on. Like every time I meet someone, I put what they do, where they live, and a couple notes about the interaction in my phone. And then if I'm ever in that location, I search, okay, who's in Barcelona? Oh, I know these 4 people here, and I go meet up. And it's just like this consistent touch base. And it's I pride myself on being able to do that and know people all over the world. And so as I started to go through this, I searched in my phone. I said, who's developed a boutique hotel, and who knows real estate, who's a good lawyer, who's this, who's that. And as this began to expand, I started to think of it through the lens of how do I turn this into a full community rather than just the hotel. I come back to LA after a trip down there. I'm in a sauna with my friend Camden. Camden runs a very large venture fund. And we're talking, and he goes, "You're thinking too small." I go, "Dude, I'm buying a
developer, wellness center, hotel."
Yeah, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. What do you mean?" He goes, "What did you help resorts do?" He goes, "You help them solve a qualitative problem with a quantitative analysis." I go, "Okay, Stanford MBA. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "You help them take an experientially driven hospitality problem and convert it into something that makes sense for the economics of a property." Like unintentionally did that. I was like, people want to go experience this thing. The numbers this is how it makes sense. This is what you make. But I wasn't leading in it with numbers. I was like, this is the result kind of thing. This is what people want. And he goes, what people want is they want a way to know that they're getting better over time. That's why they go on. They need to leave where they're at to go to a place, to have a vacation, to distance themselves from the things that are hurting themselves so that they can then feel themselves improve. I'm like, okay, how do we create a baseline of people going to a resort? And we went back and forth, and I was like, I track all my metrics. I have this spreadsheet that's on my computer that I have 5 years of data on myself of like, here's what time I woke up. Here's what time I went to sleep. Here's how creative I was that day. Here are these habits that I track. Like, here's my quantitative and creative scoring system for my life. And another tracker system that I love. And I said, what if we do diagnostics before someone goes to a property? Like, what if I set a baseline biologically on you, and then you go to the property and you get retested afterwards? He goes, now we're getting somewhere.
A way to measure it.
Yeah.
So people feel like they have actually, upped their score in some way.
And he goes, okay, that's great. How does this work? And we went through the actual operations of this process. And I was like, there's a lot of platforms out there that are aggregate platforms. And so it's, let me take this blood test, this genetic test, this test, this test, this test, put them into one folder, and here's your 12 PDFs. Good luck. doesn't help anyone, and you don't actually know what anything is. I did a microbiome test a couple of years ago because I kept getting injured and I couldn't figure out why. And turns out because of all the drinking, I had basically a non-existent bifidobacterium in my gut. Your gut has 7 different types of prebiotic, so to speak, or probiotic, and bifidobacterium is one that deals with the breakdown of inflammatory foods. Brussels sprouts, red meat, beer. I didn't have any of that, and I was having steak and Brussels or steak and asparagus every night for dinner, and I had an abnormally high level of inflammation in my body that led to me fracturing my shin, that led to me like having a bunch of different adverse health effects. I found that out, and I said, oh shit, if I have this fiber-based prebiotic, I can rebuild that gut flora, that gut bacteria that's positive, and then I can reintegrate these foods back into my life. That clicked for me. I was like, that makes perfect sense. What if my mom had known all of these things that were going on under the hood before it got too late to treat it? Interesting. Now, what if every single person, rather than going to a hospital or a doctor's office every single year to get their checkup, which 80% of people don't do, what if we experientified their annual checkup, made it enjoyable, put them into a new location where they got to experience local culture, and then took that culture and, like Andaz, built the experience around the local environment? Now we're getting somewhere. Then we do it in Costa Rica in the heart of the blue zone. Now we're really getting somewhere. And I said, this is great. How do we build this technology that can help people understand everything that's going on under the hood in a way that's simple and super convenient for the everyday person? And as we started to think about this tech and who we were going to bring on to build it and this and this and this, a lot of these other pieces started to fall into place. And I realized that solving this harmonization problem for our resort, it's great to solve our own use case, but we're building something that can exist in your pocket on a direct-to-consumer standpoint. And met with Camden again. Camden's a very smart guy. You guys should both meet him too.
Yeah.
And the conversation was essentially like, you're not going to have a life for the next couple of years, but you have the opportunity right here, and you've been uniquely prepared for this with everything that's happened before, to not only build out this experiential hospitality piece, but also be positioned to build out the tech that enables this and enables other people to have this in their pocket. And so on a high level, Baseline today exists as a harmonization platform.
And Baseline is the name of this
product, of the product. So Baseline is a harmonization platform, not an aggregation platform. Harmonizing meaning we start with a whole genome sequence, which is your foundation, and then we layer diagnostic blood work on top, and then we layer wearables on top of that, and they all speak to one another. We're building the framework of it so we can add in whatever tests we want in the future, but those are the primary three. Genetics being what you're born with. It's that's your lifetime biomarker, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Blood work changes every 28 days. Every single month your body flushes, and that's your monthly. And then wearable is daily input. And so I said, if we harmonize this, I don't care about the knowledge of it. The everyday person doesn't care what their APOB level is. Like they don't even know what it means.
You're gonna make it.
What if we focus on behavior and lifestyle? What if we say we're going to give you 3 biology-informed daily challenges that you can't self-report? You can't go in and say, I walked my 10,000 steps. Check.
It's got to be measured.
But it's integrated via your wearable. Now, everything opens up. Now, corporate wellness wants it because they can track what is the employee doing. So one piece that I'll disclaimer, a company or someone like that wouldn't see an individual employee, that's way too personal, but it's on the cohortization level. So say your marketing department has 50 people in it. you can see what the cohort is doing as a whole. But you can track now what percent increase in baseline score equals a decrease in absenteeism and an increase in revenue per employee. Wow, now we can actually incentivize people to follow their and keep a streak, so to speak. Insurance companies are talking to us right now and saying, hey, we want to offer this because if we can see that someone has a 90-day streak, now they're actually being healthier, we can decrease their premium because their statistical chance of death is going down, and we can measure that. And it's far more than someone with an everyday physical. Like, it's far more detailed than any of that anyone ever gets. And so trying to solve my own problem, I created another problem. Like, every solution creates a problem.
Yeah. But your problems are like full-on billion-dollar businesses.
And the cycles continued.
Yeah.
But it's, like I said, everything I've done in my past has uniquely prepared me for what comes next. And as I go into this, like, all of the pieces in a really cool way have aligned, where it's, I'm not I'm firefighting every day, but in a way that feels so in flow that there's no way this couldn't be divinely timed or meant for something else.
It feels like your whole life is in flow, and that's something that I've been questioning for myself, because I feel like a lot of my life has been up here, because that's just how I was raised, just I not talk about emotions, and I'm just kind of curious because it feels like the universe and you are kind of in this flow, like you're saying. There's you see these signs and you follow it, because you're also kind of thinking about those things and you're kind of manifesting them as well. Is that something you've always had, where you've always been in this flow? Because it sounds like even from an early time, it's like you also haven't been in these like long-term things where it's like you've been like, I've been selling real estate for 19 years now, a long time. I feel like you've been doing a lot of different things, but they're always getting you to that next level.
It's a good question.
What does that feel like that personally for you? Or looking back, does it kind of align now that you're looking in hindsight in some of that aspect?
I think the best way to articulate it is something I learned in the Tony Robbins world, and that's life is happening for you, not to you. And being able to reframe my mom's passing as an event of gratitude, of like a blessing. Like, what if she was put here in order to inspire me to create this thing that inspires others? If that, then this kind of thing. If that is true, then all these other things have to be true. And so almost as a psychological principle, if I didn't believe all these things were divinely timed in a way, I would have to then believe that her death didn't mean something. And so I would have to invalidate what I've believed my entire life. I've never even thought about that until this moment. And I think that just gave that even more context and clarity and even more gratitude for what had happened because of that.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I ask you a question, it kind of always goes back to that like pivotal moment in your life.
Yes, and it's a very large moment, and so it's easy to use that as a reference point. But in a way, I think of my life like before and after. And I don't remember much of the before.
It was maybe more up here, and then maybe you were more in here.
And I think I'm still moving more into here.
Yeah. I can feel that. Like when you talk, you're very passionate about what you're doing. And when you have passion, it's not coming from here; it's coming from here.
Yeah.
You know, from your heart.
It's passion, also the authenticity of it too. It's very, very in unison, and you can feel that, which is awesome.
Let's talk about this project though. I mean, we've talked about the story, which is an amazing story, and we're super pumped for you. You know, let's talk more about what this whole thing is going to look like in the next few years.
So it was a pre-existing resort acquisition, like I said. 24 rooms, 2 restaurants, kind of a spa. Costa Rican spa.
Loosely.
Yeah.
And the benefit of the project is that the hotel was initially built before Costa Rica had a demarcation line. So we have no drawback from high tide. I mean, we do, but...
Why don't we just explain for demarcation line is...
Demarcation line is essentially a setback from the water line. Any new build in Costa Rica has a 250-meter demarcation line, setback line from high tide. So if someone is selling you oceanfront property, 99% chance it's not oceanfront property. It's actually about 1,000-foot drawback from the ocean, and everything between where you're living and the ocean is jungle. It's preserved. Cannot touch it. You're wading through thick jungle to get to the water. We don't have that problem, and so it's expanding from 24 to 52 rooms. The resort itself will be entirely biology informed. So prior to you going down, a phlebotomist comes to your home, draws your blood, puts 4 blood droplets on a DBS, a dry blood spot card, sends that in. You don't have to think about it. They're in and out in 20 minutes. That gives us a whole genome sequence. That gives us a full diagnostic panel and a few other panels as well. Everything that you do on property is tailored to you. So you have biology-informed menus, personalized treatments, personalized spa services, education, excursions, again, taking into that blue zone environment. Why do people live the longest there, and are they the happiest? There's a lot behind that.
Yeah, you'll see why.
There's a lot behind that. And that's the resort side of things. We have 44 condominiums. So there's 2, as we're recording this today, there's 2 existing buildings right now. 11 units per building, 10 condominiums, 1 penthouse in each. That will never happen again on that coast. They were permitted prior to a 7-story building being no longer allowed, and restamped the plans, and here we go. Those 4 penthouses are highly coveted because that doesn't exist on that coastline, and it will never exist on that coastline. Directly behind that is 32 single-family homes, primarily all 3-bed, 2-bath. We're playing with the idea of giving a few people the option to do like a 5-5, 5-4, and those are more like you're in the jungle. But I really want to make those indoor-outdoor open floor plans, so it's like you're living with nature, and you and nature are one. I can give you a story of how that idea came about too, from a safari that I went on. But for the project itself, that's the land as it exists today. 138 total keys. There's land around that as well that we're putting under contract now, because the intention is to expand that entire, it's like an alcove, essentially. Playa Azul, Costa Rica, and Guanacaste, that entire rock to rock will be us. Right now it's almost 18 acres. Once we have these additional pieces under contract, it'll be almost 50. And then there is the option a little bit past that, depending on how big we actually want this development to go, to where we could get it close to 100.
Oh, double it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not all that will be developed. I don't intend to develop all that. I more intend to purchase to the north and south, so that there's no one coming in or out, and you have a grand entranceway to get to where you live or where you go stay.
Oh, but you didn't talk about the surfing though.
This is true.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
5 minutes north of us is a town called Marbella. Marbella has one of the best beach breaks in all of Central America.
Yeah, that's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
The beach is over a mile long.
Wow.
Wow. What
Like,
a project.
Yeah.
Huge.
What a
That's
project.
exciting. So surf, wellness, and how do you get there? Because there's two airports, but you were telling me there's a airport where you can go direct from LA and also some other cities, right? In the United States.
So the closest airport's Liberia. The closest international is Liberia. 4.5, 5 hour direct from LA, 6 hour from New York, 5.5, 6 hour from New York direct. There's a direct out of Paris too, so you can that goes to San Jose, the capital, but you can still get to Costa Rica direct. 75, 90-minute drive from Liberia to the property, or you can fly from Liberia to Nosara Airport, and that's 25 minutes to the property. If you really want to get there quick, you can helicopter, and we have a permanent helipad just to the south of us, so you'd be 2 minutes from property.
Nice.
It's awesome. It was incredible.
Yeah. I'm excited to go down there.
Me too. I'm excited to see. I mean, just knowing you for a year and not really hearing about this until most recently, and then watching what you've built, your vision of this, it's truly incredible.
I appreciate it.
I'm really excited to watch you bring this to fruition and see from where we are now and just revisit in X amount of time and see what happens.
I appreciate it. And by the time this thing goes live, right now we got 6 days until sales go live. So
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
very.
Yeah. So what's the first phase of the sales?
First phase is the first two condo buildings.
Okay.
So we have 20 condo units. Starts at $690 and increases in price as you go up floors, and then 2 penthouses, and those start at 2.4.
And then after that, you'll be selling the single families.
Then after that, the single families and the other 2 condo buildings.
Gotcha. Very cool.
So you're keeping, explain the difference between the sales and the hotel and how that works.
So the sale, the residences themselves, you own outright. Mm-hmm. So each individual unit is owned by a Costa Rican SRL. It's the same thing as an LLC in the States. So you want to buy a place, you are acquiring 100% shares of that company, you own it outright. Because all of those units are over 150 grand, you get residency, Costa Rican residency as well. After 4 years if you're a LATAM citizen, 5 years if you're a US citizen, you can apply for citizenship, then you get a Costa Rican passport, and you're good in Latin America. The units themselves, so you'll own outright, and then you also have the option to release them into our managed rental pool. So we take a small fee to manage it for you, but those are projected to make 12 to 16% annually, as long as the owner's not there 12 months a year.
Dependent.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So who do you see buying this? I mean, obviously people that are in the wellness space, right?
Wellness space, and we've had a lot of interest from professional athletes.
Yeah.
So I've had, and again, this is kind of like my past and present combining. I've had a lot of interest from pro sports teams that want to use it as an off-season training facility because we have the tech enablement and the seclusion that there isn't a lot of option, and the access. Like, to bring an entire team down to a place where they can get there in 6 hours, pretty great.
Would that change the dynamics of either selling the lots or how the setup is, or is it going to be the same if they wanted to utilize that way?
No, because the resort itself will be private, and so you'll have reception onward is private to anyone who's staying on resort property, and then we have a beach club. So we have an incredible, like I said, oceanfront, incredible beach club that will be open to residents and anyone that's staying on property. So resort guests can go to beach club and back and forth. Residents can go to the beach club but can't go into the resort. Then we have a 25,000 square foot well-being center and spa. And that sits up on top of the hill overlooking the resort with direct floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. So imagine going to do contrast therapy or like being in a mortal chamber or some type of personalized IV treatment, and you've got a perfect view of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you also said that all the condos will have ocean views, right? Because you're kind of on the a small slope.
Sloped all the way up.
Yeah.
Even the park view, which is the first floor, has an ocean view.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Anything else about the development that we should know about? Oh, I mean the name. I think the name is really cool. Talk about the history of the name.
So Velara is the name of the development. Lara means divinely guided or guided by the stars, and the V stands for vitality. And as I was trying to come up with a name, I was trying to think of something that would encapsulate how I got to this place. And kind of like we had discussed prior, I've allowed myself to jump into the canoe and let the current take me. And in a way, I've been divinely guided by the stars, so to speak. And so I was Googling one day, that name popped out, and I said, this is weird. Okay, it's a cool name. I don't like Elara, but like, how do we make this tie in together? And I was on a call with John Beer, the founder of Jack Taylor PR. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we're building this place to help people come home to themselves and live with vitality. And he goes, vitality, that's exactly what this is. And I was like, huh. Got off the call. I was like, Velara.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
And then clicked.
Trademark search, Google search. Like, are we good? Good. The only developer in Canada, if you're listening, Velara.com. I want it.
For cheap.
We're not doing a huge project.
Yeah. Very
Awesome.
cool.
I know who has it, and I know their price.
Yeah.
I'll have it in a couple months.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And how do they get more information on this project?
VelaraResorts.com.
Okay. VELARA
ARA.
resorts.com. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Well,
Cool, man.
Kevin, thanks for coming on, man. That was really fun.
That was awesome.
Getting to know a little bit more about you, your story. You're really inspiring, especially at a guy your age to be doing what you're doing and having the fortitude to say, to tell people what you're going to be doing with that convention is really inspiring. It really is, man. So appreciate your time here and look forward to seeing where this goes, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Man. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. And how do they follow you on socials?
Kevin Wathey.
Kevin Wathey. All right.
WATHEY.
All right. All right, guys. See you later. Bye.